Look, your boy James Franklin is at it again. And, he's kind of right this time. This time he's moaning about the Big Ten putting their media days in Vegas. I was just in Vegas. And so I got a lot to say about this. I live in this world a lot, obviously. I've covered, I think it's 23 media days for the SEC. Here's what James Franklin had to say about the Big Ten scheduling its media days in a state where they don't have a member. And I think at best they're 5 hours driving away in driving term from any member institution. He said a lot of our beat writers did not come to this because they could not afford to get out here. I got something to say about that. He says, and the majority of our teams are near Chicago, where this used to be. The majority of our teams are near Indianapolis, where this used to be. And it creates a different environment. I walk around the lobby, and they were at Mandalay Bay, which is an MGM property. So I walk around the lobby, and I don't see any signage. I don't see anything available for the Big Ten, anything for the Big Ten. I don't see people getting autographs. It's a different vibe and a different feeling. I think that other conference, which he would not say the SEC, when they have their meetings, there's essentially a press conference every day at the end of the meetings. I think he's talking about Paul's show. I'm not sure. He says it keeps people talking about that conference at the time of year. It makes them relevant. Dude, the national championships makes the SEC relevant. More than two teams winning it in this century. He said, we're not doing that. We need to be talking about the Big Ten in our programs and the things that we've done and making it as accessible to everyone as we possibly can. Connecting with fans. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Vegas is a special place, and I think they run events as well as anybody. But it's a different feeling. It's a different feeling, and I've been at those other places where they're putting up babies for you autograph and stuff. It's different. I think there's still some things we have to be strategic and smart about that are going to put our conference members in the best position. Here's what I would say, first of all. As wild as the SEC media days have been over the years, I have not seen someone putting a baby up for an autograph. I will say I would not be shocked if that actually happened. However, it would make it kind of creepy to do that, but we are talking about SEC fans here. And the SEC, to their credit, is smart enough not to put put their media days in a venue that has no relevance to anything. I mean, Las Vegas is an international city. It's not Chicago, which is also an international city, but like Las Vegas has no soul. You got to drive 5-ish hours from LA to get out there if you're lucky, traffic. Who else is close? 5 hours? Like Atlanta is like not 5 hours from Knoxville, Athens, Columbia, Auburn, Tuscaloosa, probably Starkville. I mean, like, you're getting close to half the league there, and Atlanta is a larger city than Las Vegas and so forth. When I was in Vegas at MGM during the Pacquiao fight, there was signage everywhere. They had a press conference. Is it possible the SEC knows what they're doing and the Big Ten doesn't? Is it possible that the Big Ten got too big? And, like, adding Oregon and UW and SC and UCLA does not. It's a very good, obviously those are all four very good academic schools. This is not about academics, no matter what the Big Ten thinks. If it was about academics, why'd you add Nebraska? But, this is about the promotion of a sport that the Big Ten is second best in right now, no matter what Colin Cowherd or any of those people working for news corporations say. The reality is, Southeastern Conference is the best conference, period. It just is. It's not me being a honk. I don't care. What difference does it make to me? It doesn't. But here's who. Let's just do simple math here, okay? Let's talk about who's won national championships this century, who are current members of each conference. So let's just talk reality. What is reality? National championships. The Southeastern Conference has won 4 national championships in basketball to the Big Ten's 2 this century. The Big Ten, in a sport they really love, has not won the national championship in basketball since 2002. And that was Maryland when they were in the ACC. In football, it's even more whacked, okay? It's 16 national championships to 6. 7 different SEC programs have won the national championship in this century. 7. That's almost half the league. And so when James is talking about, it keeps people talking about that conference at a time of the year, it makes them relevant. 16-6 makes it relevant, James. You should be one of the teams that's won the national championship, Penn State, but you have not. You were at Vanderbilt. You know the power of the SEC. And I'll say this real quick about a lot of our beat writers did not come to this because they cannot afford to get out here. That is pathetic. And I say that as a person who has no corporate nothing. It's just us. We have to create our own revenue. Guess what? Do you think we skipped Texas? That trip cost $2,500, okay, to go to media days. For Kirby and them talking for, 4 hours. It was an extremely expensive trip. You don't skip media days. So the notion that it's in Vegas and you can't get there from, I guess you got to drop Penn. I will say this about Penn State, is pretty isolated. But all you got to do is drop to Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or wherever that's convenient. You drive to Philadelphia, get the train, go to Newark or something. I don't know. But he's suddenly taking up for his beat writers. That's hilarious. That's not very SEC-like. But the reality is that the Big Ten has gotten too big. There's no scenario where you should be doing anything in Las Vegas. I mean, like a bowl game, sure. But like as an event, no. That just does not make any sense at all as an organization. And the Southeastern Conference, this is the equivalent of them putting the SEC, of them putting media days. I mean, I guess in Vegas too, but in like Kansas City or something. Like there's no but. I mean, Mandalay Bay should have had a lot of signage. I don't know if there's a couple of Mandalay Bays, and what I mean to say is there's a Delano and there's Mandalay Bay. So maybe they were in an area, but I don't know. But I'll say this about the Pacquiao fight, which was a title fight, but not a massive fight. Pacquiao's got a lot of fans. That it was everywhere. It was all, and you could tell there was a fight that night. It may just be that the Big Ten does not have the draw the SEC does. I mean, it is that. You talk to people. I've been to ACC media days. It's not the same. It's not as the SEC. It's different. It just is. Now, it's different than anywhere else. I think Ohio State is similar. I think Michigan is similar. I think when they're rolling, Florida State and Clemson are similar. But, I know too many people that have covered the Big Ten as well as the SEC. It's just not the same. It's just not the same. And, that the Big Ten is struggling right now to get traction. Look, the Big Ten is the second best conference in collegiate sports. It's a great brand. It's awesome. It is. An Oregon State or an Ohio State game. That's awesome. But once you start getting down the list a little bit, it gets kind of thin. I mean, like for instance, and I have, it's like, this is a very informal listing that I have, but the Southeastern Conference traditional top 6 teams have all won the national championship since 1998. The Big Ten, I don't know who their traditional top 6 are. I mean, I don't think they have a traditional top 6. They have a traditional top 2. I think Wisconsin and Penn State, occasionally have been good. Lately, Penn State's been good. Lately, depends on the year, I guess. But there's no base there for the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten, the power of the SEC is a core of 6 programs, which is Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, LSU. That's the core group. But we've seen over time South Carolina be, I can't believe I'm going to say this, South Carolina for a 3-year period with Steve Spurrier, they were a national power. You talk about Ole Miss, I don't think they're a national power, but they are certainly relevant. People won't shut up about Texas A&M. They've never really proved it. And you talk about, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky. Those are, good brands. Those are top 30 brands. It depends on the sport. Obviously, Kentucky, a huge, and Arkansas, both massive basketball schools. But in football, no. So when you start looking at the top 6 is not really the problem in the Big Ten, although it gets pretty thin pretty quick. No one's going to talk about Michigan State and Michigan and Ohio State like they're anything other than huge. They are. Same thing I would say with Penn State, although not at Michigan Ohio State levels. Penn State and Oregon are probably closer to one another. SC, like, I also know from my history of doing this that, like, there are like 10 outlets that cover Georgia. And I know Georgia's a huge brand, and like, I don't know how many people cover Ohio State or Michigan, but like there's like 10 people that cover 10 outlets that cover South Carolina. Like South Carolina is at the bottom quarter of the SEC in terms of bottom third of like good at things. So, he's talking about all this stuff and it's just not the same. Nobody in the Big Ten is ever going to give their child to be autographed, and the passion, the passion is completely different. So James says, it's a different feeling. I've been at those other places where people are putting up babies for you to autograph. It's different. It is different. That's not what y'all are. It's just not what the Big Ten is. And I think you got to be okay with that. Again, I spent multiple days in Vegas. It could not be more in the ballrooms and all that. It could not be more boring. It's a boring place when you're not in the casinos, And so there's no atmosphere there. There's no like fans. Like I'm sure there are Big Ten fans. They're not going to go down to Mandalay Bay in Vegas. And just like, no. And also, the other thing is, too, I would say structurally, they've got their coaches talking for, I think it's the schedule on the Big Ten website says they talk for 15 minutes. Like, that's just not a long period of time. Matt Rule, 15 minutes, that's it. It's just not a long time. I mean, Kurt Kennedy had plenty to say, but it's just not a long period of time. And a lot of these coaches have been in the Southeastern Conference. You talk about Brett Bielema. Obviously, his time at Arkansas was, not great. Dan Lanning was in the SEC as an assistant at Georgia. He knows it well. James Franklin at Vanderbilt. There are plenty of people that know and understand. Lincoln at Oregon, at Oklahoma before it was in the SEC. But people understand Barry Odom at Purdue. They know the difference, and it's not the same. It's not the same at all. You think about the rivalries of the Big Ten. There are some really good rivalries. Michigan Ohio State is one of the great rivalries in the sport. I would give you Auburn Alabama. What is the second biggest rivalry in the Big Ten? I'm asking genuinely. Is it Oregon, Washington? Is it SC, UCLA? They just came into the league. Is it Nebraska, Iowa? Like, no. Is it Michigan State? There's probably 4 Michigan States in the SEC. Is there an equivalent to Alabama, Tennessee? Is there equivalent to Georgia, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma? Is there something like the Egg Bowl where you just like you turn it on and something dumb is going to happen and you will be entertained? Is there... are there the Tennessee Georgia games? I do think there are Tennessee Georgias because you have, Ohio State, Michigan State, or Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan, Penn State. But one problem for Penn State is they don't really have a rival, and then that's not a good thing, I don't think. Is there? I mean, these are not rivalries, but is there Georgia, Alabama? Is there Georgia, Texas? Is there Georgia, LSU? No, there's not, because they don't have the brands. They have 2 huge brands, and Penn State. But they don't, Oregon's stadium is like the size of Ole Miss's, I think. And it's just not, it's got 54,000 people. That's like the size of Scott Field at Mississippi State. That would be one of the smallest venues in the SEC. That's one of their biggest brands. Now, Ohio State and Michigan, Beaver Stadium, those places are huge. Sanford, Death Valley, Bryant Denny, Nealon, Kyle Field, Daryl K. Roll. I mean, like, you run out of fingers after a while. So if James Franklin doesn't, I mean, he's frustrated because the Big Ten didn't do it right. And he's right. He's completely, that issue, I've never had that in Vegas. But your beat people shouldn't be skipping out. That's not going to work. We're just at where we're at with this thing. The Big Ten has won 2 national championships, and they're getting bruised from thumping their chest so much. The SEC never, I don't think the SEC stopped thumping his chest. The bruises are just calloused. They know the deal. But there's just been too many whippings over the years that, that the SEC has given to the Big Ten for people to take it. See, Ole Miss beat Penn State's ass the last time they played each other. Ole Miss. Think about the Missouri-Ohio State game. People say, well, people were held out. That's on you. That's your deal. Think about, there's so many instances of the schools. At the end of the day, it comes down to 16-6. And that includes SC's titles that were taken away. Okay. But it comes down to 16-6. And, I would not include Texas and Oklahoma, but then you take away USC's and it becomes something like 14-4. Okay. And 3 of them being Ohio State's. Okay. So it's not the same. And the reason why, it's not, James, it's not what makes the league relevant. Media days is not what makes the SEC relevant. Winning national championships is what makes it relevant. And, in the last, this decade, you've seen the league dominate again and win basketball national championships and, baseball national championships and women's basketball national championships. There's just a better league. And the Big Ten folks aren't allowed to say that out loud, but I am, and I will. And if it were the opposite, I'd say the same thing is true. Basketball, I never thought the SEC would be bigger than the ACC. It is. And I never thought I would say that, but it's true. But I do want, this is one thing there's so much to be dissected there with what James Franklin said. He is absolutely correct that league should only have their media days in Chicago or Indianapolis. Period. This is the equivalent, again, of the SEC having their media days in in Atlantic City or something. It's just so dumb. It makes no sense in any way. But the SEC is not worried about all that other stuff. They just say, hey, how can we get this many people, this 1,200, 1,400 people, whatever it was. It's huge every year. It's at the College Football Hall of Fame, which happens to be in Atlanta. It's not in Columbus or Cincinnati or someplace in the Midwest. It's in Atlanta where it belongs because it's bigger down here. It means more. That's why they have that as a phrase. Don't be confused. There's no confusion here. The reality is what it is. And, in terms of, autographing babies, no, you're not going to see that in the Big Ten. And I've never seen that. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's not possible that it happened, but that would only happen in the SEC, period.